Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast for quilters who are building a business while juggling real life.
I'm Tori from Hey Tori, a quilter, past pattern designer and teacher, and now a digital marketing coach for quilting entrepreneurs.
And I'm Andi from True Blue Quilts, long arm quilter, pattern designer, and quilting instructor.
Between the two of us, we've taught workshops, launched programs, joined summits, and stayed up way too late trying to finish one more quilt binding.
On this show, we're sharing what's worked and what hasn't in our interviews from incredible guests, everyone from quilting solo business owners to CEOs.
So if you're running a quilting or creative business or dreaming about starting one, you'll find real talk, honest strategies, and a whole lot of support here.
So grab your notebook, grab your pen, and let's dive into another episode of Quilting on the Side. Welcome to our first episode of season 6. This is Tori and Andi, and we're here with Quilting on the Side. And it's just been a great time. I'm so excited to be here again with my lovely co-host. And we're kicking off season 6 in January, which is a good time for planning, setting intentions for the year. And we actually have several episodes about planning, and we'll link those in the show notes. But we wanted to take a little bit of a different perspective here and really dig into the idea of work-life balance, because that's always on the mind of entrepreneurs, of quilters, whose families may have thoughts and feelings about this endeavor. So what's been on your mind, Tori?
Well, first, what's been on my mind? Well, it's the start of 2026, and already the year feels heavy. We were talking before we started recording that it feels like we have to get back in the groove of things. A lot has happened since we ended season 5, and it has only been 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But as usual, we got the holiday season in there, which always feels like it's exciting sometimes it's really heavy for others, and it's at the very least a time and energy drainer during the holidays, even if it's fun or heavy. And I'm really excited that we're talking about this topic today, because I think it's top of mind for most entrepreneurs coming into January of how do I plan this next year? How do I balance both my life, my health, my family with this endeavor that I'm doing, especially for our audience who many of them are still working full time, like you, Andi, and quilting on the side for their business. So my first thoughts on this is that balance, it's a term that was used a lot a few years ago, especially during 2020, 2021, 2022, where everyone was trying to find balance with working from home and, when the world shut down, all that. And we haven't talked about it in a while, but I do believe, or I haven't heard about it in a while, I should say. But I don't think balance is realistic in its everyday form. I think what really to keep in mind how to balance your life and your business is to keep it balanced in the grand scheme of things. So as we're looking at our whole year, especially in the DMMC, I talk about this a lot too with my clients about how you're going to have busy seasons, and then you want to actually plan rest seasons. And within those busy seasons, you also want to plan rest days. So as we go through, and if you listen back to our podcast on goal planning, which Andi just mentioned, we've got something in there that talks about putting your stuff on the calendar, right? And when you put your dates on the calendar, make sure you're setting some days aside to actually rest after those long launches or those big class wrap-ups. Or if you have a day-long class, make sure you're taking a day or two to really, I want to say woosah, really rest. And get your body some rest, get your mind some rest. Your creativity may need a little rest, and actually work that in to help balance out those busy seasons and rest seasons. So that comes to mind first. So Andi, what comes to mind for you when we talk about balancing life and business?
Yeah, I think we have this flawed image like you were alluding to, that balance is keeping everything on a perfectly even keel, like that teeter-totter that always needs to be level, and that is not reality. We are going up and down, and we have highs and lows with our emotions, with, as you mentioned, busy seasons in our business and in our family life. The holidays are that high time when everybody's going, 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 so we naturally need that little bit of a lull, a rest period after that. So one thing that always helps me was an analogy that a different business owner gave me years ago, that it's more like juggling. Obviously, we use that imagery a lot too. So we're trying to keep a lot of balls in the air or plates spinning, and there are certain things in life that can be thought of as glass objects, very fragile and breakable and important, and other things that may be plastic or rubber, and they bounce a little bit easier. They're more flexible. And so you you want to focus your most intense care around the glass objects because you don't want those to fall and break. And so those could be things like relationships. We want to pour into our family because we want to keep that whole and special, whereas some of the other things, if they drop off a little bit, they'll bounce, and we can put them back in their original form. So that determining which things are glass and which things are plastic, which things can bounce a little bit, is important in keeping that sense of balance, juggling all the things, and really having that holistic perspective where we do give our attention in the appropriate amounts. I'm not going to say equally to all things, but in appropriate amounts at the right time.
Definitely. And I do wanna mention that you are glass.
Yeah.
And if you are listening, don't forget about yourself. You are glass, you will break. And, that actually reminds me, so I had a really powerful conversation with a client over the last few months. It's kind of a reoccurring. So in my program, I have monthly clients where we meet once a month and we go over action steps, what they did last month, what are we working on coming up. And what I've started to do, and she was the one that really, like, opened my eyes to this, concept. I love that glass and rubber. Did I
Mhm.
mention that? Because that's a great metaphor. So I would consider what I'm about to say a glass thing that maybe has broken, because this client, she lost her mother, right before the holidays, which is already a tough thing. And what I've started to do, and I think we all need to do this, is to really take into account that as women, we tend to compartmentalize the different parts of our life. We have maybe our mom brain, and we have our work brain, and we have our business brain, and we have our creative brain. That's kind of how I like picture it in my head. I have different like brains for different areas of my life. But your body is in all those places, and your body feels everything that you're doing. And when something this monumental comes up, I think it's very important to acknowledge it, but also to let yourself take the time you need to put yourself back together. And in that way, and what that looks like practically with what I'm doing with this particular client is in the action steps that we have for them, I'm actually putting in self care. And one of those things is like exercise, is like top, because you want your body to feel good. That's going to help you. It's going to help you keep moving. It's going to help you keep going. But we've also talked about structuring their week so that if they need to lay in bed half a day because the grief is too much, the anger is too much, then they have that time freedom to make that up a different time, or to set that time aside to just be like, whenever I come, whenever Monday starts, it's just too much. So I need an extra couple hours that day. Just letting yourself take that time, especially at the moment when these big things happen, is to let yourself take that time and to intentionally structure your week. Now, it doesn't have to be like hard structure, like concrete, It could be more like, "Give me some wiggle room." So, like, I'm gonna make sure that Tuesdays are always open in the evening because that's where I always find some energy to do XYZ and make up for whatever I couldn't get to on Monday or something like that. And I just wanna acknowledge that because you are glass, and if you do end up breaking, to make sure that you take the time to put yourself back together. And it may take years. It may not be a quick fix thing. I actually met with a group of entrepreneurs yesterday. Um, I went to coffee with them. This is my second time going, and it was just local entrepreneurs. None of them are in the quilting industry. They were all doing different things. And one thing that we talked about was how some because one of the ladies is a therapist. So she was going into what she was doing for her doctorate, which is like leadership. And one lady was mentioning how powerful her view of leadership was as a relationship view of leadership, because she was also talking about not only a relationship with the people that you are working with or managing, but also the relationship with yourself. And so many people try to fix their burnout or their overwhelm with a weekend trip or run to get coffee, and they think that's going to fix something that is more of a mindset or more of a habit that's been formed. So it's powerful to think of, and I might be botching this a little bit because I don't have I don't have a doctorate in there and anything to do with psychology or anything, and she does, but they were talking about how scheduling that time in for the long term is what's gonna make the difference, which in learning theory, as we know, as instructional designers, that is 100% how our brains learn, is structuring in those little bits of time, that habit stacking, as, I think Atomic Habits is what called it, habit stacking, is what's going to build in that long-term healing, that long-term rest is when you intentionally set time aside to actively rest. Now, I'm really bad at that. So if you're also like, "Toy, I don't know how to do that." Well, I don't either, but I feel like it's a good time to learn before we drop the ball and break something. That's
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and you were mentioning, good instructional theory, that spaced repetition is very important. So, building in those periodic, you know, this the first Tuesday of the month is gonna be my planning day, and, you come back to that, or the end of the month, I always do my reflections, so, building that in so that you can carry those lessons forward is gonna be, a key to your long-term success, so
yes.
that is a wonderful perspective. Yeah, and we know that with the demographics of the quilting world, we're all gonna be hit with those periods of grief and loss, and, it's an unfortunate, aspect of getting older, and, quilting can be a good release for that, so, we do need to acknowledge and recognize, the people that, are are dealing with those heavy emotions, and it can show up in all sorts of ways, so
And give yourself grace. I think that's what I
e
was really going with. Give yourself
exactly, yeah.
grace. Let the plan, because I'm formulating my thought here. I work with a lot of I'll call them high-powered women. They're ambitious. And we wanna go, 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 go. We got this idea, we wanna run with it. We got this idea, we wanna run with it. And sometimes we don't allow ourselves that space to, like, chill. And, I think that's why I wanted to bring that up with our podcast for balancing life and business, is because your body takes all of it in and not just your business. So, yeah, you're gonna have a great time sewing and creating over here, and then when it's time for business stuff, it feels more draining. But I think that structuring that in is gonna make it easier for you. I mean, we just said habit stacking. And when you were talking, I was thinking about how I do have a marketing Monday. And I've started noticing that it's building into a habit where when Monday hits, my mind is already thinking about my marketing, because I've been doing that now for 5 months. Every Monday I sit down and I plan my business's marketing. And typically it goes around blog posts and our podcast and things like that. So it's not necessarily social media. So it's not visible. So it's a little harder for me to track because it's not, "Oh, how many posts did I get this week?" Or how many, like, how's my engagement on my social media platforms? Oh, I didn't even post on social media. I just wrote blog posts. Oh, well, how is my blog post doing? So it's like, but that's where my brain goes first thing Monday morning. And then Friday, I've been learning every Friday, and my brain is now starting to pick up that habit where every Friday morning I'm like, hey, it's Friday, it's the end of the week. I've got the list of activities we're going to do for the kids on the weekend. And then I've got that set. And now my brain opens to like learning. What am I going to learn today? And I grab my book and I go to the cafe, or I listen to a podcast that I've been kind of saving for that day. And it's just now it's an automatic thing where that 1 hour Friday morning is my one learning hour. And it's automatically starting. And it's been great. And it's helped me balance all those different things. Because at the start of the year, we talk about, oh, I want to learn how to, build a funnel. I want to learn how to set up a sales page. I want to learn a new technique so I can make a new pattern that's been floating in the back of my mind that I really want to launch this year. And we don't set time aside to actually do the learning part. We just want to have it launched. We know when we want to release it. Like we know we want to do a spring pattern in the spring, and we know we want to do Valentine's Day and February, but we don't always take the time to think, oh, I need to learn how to do that first. And where can I fit that in? And if you have an idea where you're like, hey, I know that Thursday and evenings are always free. Maybe that could be my learning hour. And then if I don't get to it, then I can learn maybe Saturday morning. And then you can start having that fluctual schedule that's, it's structured, but you have some wiggle room and you get to achieve those goals a little more easily. And it helps you achieve more of that balance. Cause like you said, there's no way we're ever going to be like perfectly balanced, but it helps.
Yeah, yeah. So, as I was listening to that description, one of the thoughts that came to mind was your approach to your week, and that may be really valuable for people as they get into the nitty-gritty of, okay, so this idea of work-life balance is really great, but how do I execute on that? And we're all about taking action. So one of the additional phrases and strategies is the idea of time blocking, and it sounds like you're doing that with your marketing Mondays, and you've got set aside time for business education and some of those other activities. So, um, I'm always reminded of the story of, you have to put the big rocks in first. So make start your calendar with those non-negotiable, things. Make sure you remember your birthdays and your anniversaries to balance that. But how does that scheduling actually happen for you?
For me, I think about what are the things that don't move throughout my week? So typically we have standing meetings, we have places we need to be. If you're working full-time job, we know that you're going to be in the office from this time to this time, or if you're working from home, you need to be online this time to this time, and you have structured your week is already structured in some kind of way. So once you've got that down and you know that there are typical free times throughout your week, those are the free times that I would mark as this can be marketing. This can be, and I would separate a few. So here are some suggestions of how you can use those little free blocks. One, I would set aside for marketing because, that's this huge part of your business is marketing. Another time I would set aside is learning or being creative. So you can use that time. Maybe you have a slash creative. So it could be learning slash creative. So maybe you learn something. Now it's time to like create with it. Or maybe you need more so time, to get projects done that are due in 3 months and you have to get to a magazine or a block of the month plan. So you've got your marketing, your so time or learning time. And then I would have a tech time. And then if everything's going well with your tech, then I would turn that into so time. Because as a quilting business owner, you are going to need so time. So anytime when you have that tech time set up, what I'm talking about tech is different from just marketing. So marketing is actually getting the message out there. Tech is making sure everything's working. So are your forms working? Is there something you've been meaning to do on your website that needs to be done? Is there a renewal that needs to happen? That's the kind of tech stuff I'm thinking of. And then lastly, I would do like bookkeeping slash tax time. Like, this is your time to look at your numbers, like, or your metrics. I do both at the same time because bookkeeping is terrifying for me. If there are any bookkeepers out there, who have some free time, let me know. I would be happy to hire a bookkeeper at this point. But having that time set aside, again, if your books are good, like maybe you didn't sell anything that week and it's really easy to be like, okay, 000, moving on. Now it can be so time. So not only have you set time aside to do your bookkeeping, to do your tech work, you also have two more spots where you've scheduled time to work and now can turn into so time because those things are taken care of. So those would be my suggestions. And then of course I would also have a so time, like a block, a good block of time. And that may require you staying up a little later or getting up a little earlier if you don't have a large chunk of time set aside for sewing. But we do need that block of time to really get some real good work done when it comes to that hands-on creation part of our business. Mine personally was Saturday mornings. I'd wake up at 6 and I would work until 10 or 11, depending on what we had for the kids. That way, that whole morning, they could sleep in, which I mean, my little kids don't sleep in very much, but sometimes they do. But they can rest, they can chill out, watch TV, eat their breakfast slow, get dressed when they feel like it. Okay, we don't actually let them get dressed when they feel like it yet, but because they're still little. So it's like, okay, let's get dressed now. We can chill. And then that way we can like go do our activities when it's time to go do. Because we usually have soccer or gymnastics or a lunch or a play date or like, things like that. So that would be a structure I would consider is look at what does it move and then schedule a few time blocks. Could be an hour, could be 30 minutes, and then schedule each of those with a task that needs or like a theme that needs to be done for your business. And then if those themes are taken care of, I would consider that so time.
That's wonderful. I would love to hear from our listeners what they have found effective in scheduling and all of those things. Uh, you were saying, you dread bookkeeping and, there's always that one piece, I know I have been focused more on taking action because I've spent years taking different courses and all those kind of things. And it's, I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. So, um, one of the helpful ideas that we actually heard from Karlee Porter. So you need to go back to her episode and get the whole Batman and Bruce Wayne persona down because let's be Batman and save the world, and we also have to balance that with those Bruce Wayne days where we're actually doing the things, and tracking and keeping our business house in order. So how do you recall those two personas?
It's a really powerful takeaway from Karlee Porter's episode. It's been sticking with me since she said that because I realized I don't really have a Batman because my business it's really enjoyable for me. I have a lot of fun with it. It does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to do all the things that I'm doing, but I needed to set some Batman, and that's some bad time, some Batman time aside to make sure that I am creative. Now, case in point, if you watched any of our podcasts on YouTube over this past season, of season 5, you'll notice that this quilt that is now behind me stayed there the entire time because I literally had no time to create. And now for 2026, I have intentionally joined a monthly it's called the Fiber Fix Fam. It's hosted by Brandy, the Quilter on Fire, who you may notice, or not notice, you may recognize her name from if you're a big podcast listener for the quilting universe. And Mel Beach, who is an amazing fiber arts teacher. They're hosting it together, and you make a postcard every month and they give you prompts. It's a mystery until the month and it's a midnight release. And I've been having a lot of fun just kind of brainstorming what I'm gonna do, but I'm still like, I don't know if I can touch fabric. Like I am still like and then it's really like hitting me like I really wasn't being, creative. And I feel like part of my business 'cause I do a lot of marketing, but a lot of it is creatively encouraged. encourage, I don't know if that's the right word, but I use a lot of creativity in my job, and my creativity, if I don't create outside of it, my creativity in it suffers.
Mhm.
So, and you'll see the quilt behind me, getting back to that, is now cut out. I finally cut out the bloom of the colors of bloom patterns. If you heard that episode where I was talking about my colors of bloom, how I messed it up and I didn't know what to do with it moving forward, I cut it out. It was like I finally did it, and I just did it right at the end of, right at the beginning, I should say, of January. So, like, right before the kids went back to school, I finally found a little creative time to cut it out. But just that little bit really opened my eyes to being like, "Hey, Tori, you need to take care of yourself more." So I'm not just talking to our audience when I talk about glass breaking and things like that. I'm also talking to myself because I need a reminder to you are important, Tori. It's hard to say. You are important, Tori. Your creative time is important. And now I have scheduled time. I have accountability with this Fiber Fix fam group that I will be creative at least once a month to create something with a medium that I really love and I miss. Like I'm starting to really miss playing with fabric. I'm all in it right now, so it might sound a little confusing. Maybe afterwards I can reflect back and really explain more of what I mean, but while I'm in it, this is kind of where my brain is. I need to be creative outside of business. I need Batman to be a better Wayne.
Yes, yes, we
Wendy,
need to
how does that
we
show up
need
for you, the Batman versus Bruce Wayne?
yeah, it really does, resonate there that you do have those 2 personas, and each one deserves their time. So, yeah, I tend to go all over the place, and so it just and with my Libra persona, having those dual aspects, has always been a pretty natural part of my life. I mean, in my classroom teacher days, I taught social studies and I taught math. So talking about that duality is pretty funny. And then there's all the folks that are really creative and don't like the math, but I can balance them pretty good. So yeah, it's been fun. But I really do think there were so many nuggets of gold in that episode with Karlee Porter that I'd recommend that for folks. And our goal planning, our how to prep a launch. There's we've got this rich library of information in the podcast, and we're so glad that people are along for the ride. So, cheers to season 6, and any last thoughts, Tori, for
Yeah,
kicking
well,
off the new year?
before before we wrap up, I would because I stopped working full time in May, and went full time in my business. I would love to hear a little bit about what you're doing or want to start doing and implementing to help you organize your time because you're still working full time and doing True Blue quilts on the side. So how are you balancing that, or have you figured it out yet?
Um, I it's hard to step back and analyze because I just weave it throughout my day. Um And yeah, I can be a little more intentional. Like you said, you have your Saturday mornings. Sunday mornings tends to be more of a block of time where I can, um, you know, family's off doing other things and I can really dig into my businesses. I am pretty good about Com as you said, compartmentalizing. I have my day job, and when that ends, I have a block of time that can be, my sew time. I've got my, weekly live stream on YouTube, which is when I get a lot of progress done on my quilt projects. So, yeah, you take a look at all the available time, and you, intentionally schedule those necessary activities. I like finance Fridays because of the alliteration, so I try to do all my bookkeeping then. But yeah, you've got to figure out a way to make it all work, and checking in with folks that have a structure that's working and trying to copy them and take lessons from other people is always a great way to go.
Really, and I love the fact that you combine productivity and marketing with the YouTube Live. Like, I'm just throwing that out there for anybody who didn't quite put that together. She is sewing and marketing by being live on YouTube. It grows her audience. It gives her time to sew. It's a little bit harder because, you're reading comments and things like that, but it does give you at least a set time to market. And then you have something you can talk about throughout the week. So you're not creating new marketing material. You're like, hey, I've got a YouTube live coming in 2 days. I've got a YouTube live coming tomorrow. Hey, today's our YouTube live. Like, it gives you something to market where it doesn't drain you, takes all your time. That way, if you do have a week where you are drowning in sew time, like you've got a project due, you've got a thing launched and you got sick and you need to like sew every waking moment of the day, then you have that wiggle room to be like, I'm not posting anything on social media except, hey, go to my live on Wednesday.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
throwing that out there. Like, I love that because it gives you something to market, but it also gives you time to work if you need it.
Yeah, yeah. Bringing people along for the behind the scenes is uh, great when you can. And we know that there are aspects of the quilt world where you have to do that secret sewing and you can't always share in the moment. But definitely, take take the pictures and the B-roll, and you can eventually put that to use. So lots of great ideas.
So I also have one more thing to invite our audience to, or one thing to invite our audience to. Not only check out the goal planning um, podcast episode, we've got a lot of good feedback from that one. It's one of our more popular ones, but also, and Karlee Porter's episode, because wow, I also am opening up my book club. So, Workshops Unleashed, my book that I self published, is to help you design and market your next quilting class. So, whether that's your first one or your next one, it also applies to any handicrafts, but the examples are quilting related. So, it can be anyone who wants to teach. It's mainly focused on outside the public classroom, but it helps you build out your own curriculum, your own class, and it helps you with pricing strategies, marketing and launching, and how to make a guild program to go along with your workshop so you can market it to guilds. And that is opening up January 17th. So if you're hearing this before January 17th, I have two options for you to join. One is free, where we work through the book together. You get accountability and a community to share your deliverables with, so your curriculum, well, I wouldn't share your curriculum map because that's your IP, but your class description, you can get direct feedback from your marketing materials. So, like anything that you want to share timeline wise, anything like that, you'll get feedback from, just checking in with everybody, answering their questions. It's been a really fun process. So, that's the free version. And then for $45, you can join me live on Zoom every other week during the book club, and we do giveaways. And I give direct one-on-one feedback on your curriculum map, on your class description, and your marketing plan. So you get that one-on-one and group collaborative experience live with me for the $45. So that again ends on January 17th because that's when we start. So if you're hearing this in time, please come and join us. I'll link the book club below. And if you're hearing this later, the book club comes around at least twice a year. So you can join the wait list, you can join my email list, and you will hear more about that as it comes out.
Yeah, and get the book because it's great reference material every time you have a new idea. So, thanks so much, Tori, for reminding us of that wonderful resource, Workshops Unleashed.
Thank you. And I hope that this episode gives everyone who feels overwhelmed, who feels like they cannot achieve balance, the peace of mind to know that it is pretty much impossible and that we're going to have busy seasons and slower seasons, and to take advantage of those slower seasons so you can show up better during those busy seasons. That's a wrap on today's conversation. We hope it gave you something real to take back to your business.
And if you liked this episode, please hit subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more quilters find the show and feel a little less alone on their entrepreneurial journey.
And if you want more support, from behind the scenes content to live chats, you'll find more in our Quilting on the Side community on Patreon. And as always, don't forget to do
A little
quilting
quilting on the side.